Now it's time for a business spotlight. This is the Adelaide Project.
You're on with the Adelaide Project, coming to you from the Business House Australia's Christmas networking event right here in the heart of Adelaide. And I'm bringing onto the program Mr. Matt McQuinley, who is a radio host, a keynote speaker, and he is also a business consultant. Matt, welcome to the Adelaide Project.
Oh, thank you very much for having me today.
So, Matt, tell us a little bit about you and your business.
Well, what I'd like to say, I'd like to tell a quick story.
Yeah.
It's about a fella one day was walking down the street, and he fell into a deep, deep hole. The sides were so steep, he couldn't get out. And he yelled and yelled, help, 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 nothing, nobody came by. And then all of a sudden, a doctor walked by. And he said, doctor, please help me out of this hole. And the doctor looked down at him, wrote a script, threw it in the hole, and walked away. Then he waits a little bit longer. He's yelling and carrying on, please, help me out, help me out. And guess what? Next, a priest walks by. And he says, Father, please help me out of this hole. And the priest says, my son, let us pray. And he does a prayer for the fella in the hole and then walks away. Then one of his friends walks by. And he says, buddy, please help me out of this hole. And to the man's surprise, the friend leaps into the hole. And the guy's like, what are you doing? Now we're both stuck down here. How are you? What are we going to do now? He goes, relax. I've been down here before, and I know the way out. So that's what I'd like to be for a lot of the people, a lot of your listeners who might be in a similar situation. I tell you, I've been in business for 30-some years, and I want to say I've seen everything, but you know, there's always something else. So I don't want to get that cocky on the air, but I've had 4 audits. I've been $2.7 million in debt. I've had somebody die in my place of business. I've had employee theft where one stole $100,000, another one embezzled over $250,000. I had a third person that stole $100,000.
Yeah.
I've had, ACCC undertakings, all kinds of. I've had bad press. And, I've weathered all of those storms and came out of them on top.
How do you do that, Matt? How do you go through so much that you've been through and come out on top?
Well, I suppose that's, I don't want to sit here and go, I'm a walking motivational story. You must work with me. I don't consider myself Anthony Robbins, although I can do an impersonation of him if you like. I was living in my 400-square-foot bachelor apartment. And no. But seriously, I don't know. There just was never a choice not to. I mean, what is the choice? The choice is handle the adversity or, go home and, suck your thumb and get in the fetal position and cry about it. So, I mean, I come from a background where my mother was a Southern Baptist. My dad was a Chicago cop. Yep. I went to the toughest all-male military university in the United States. And, you don't quit. Just because you're down now doesn't mean you're out.
That's right.
That's
right.
And there's always a way out. And through the years, what I've really learned is, all these things that I thought were obstacles that cannot be overcome, that kept me awake at night, made me so stressed and grouchy and all this. In the big scheme of things, they were no big deal.
When you say it was no big deal, was it the fact that you knew that there was a way out? There was an opening. There was a light at the end of the tunnel that you wanted to achieve.
I know oftentimes that the light at the end of the tunnel seems like a train that's coming to run you over.
Yes.
But that's not the case. I mean, there's always a solution. Sometimes they're evident. Sometimes they're not evident, but there is a way out. And I'll tell you another story. I was just sitting in church the other day, and I was thinking they were talking about the story of David and Goliath.
Yeah.
And I'm not preaching here. I mean, some of you might believe in God, others of you don't. But you'd have to agree that the Bible has some good points in it. They're not, I mean, thou shalt not kill. Good point if you don't want to end up in prison. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Good point if you don't want to lose half your assets or more. Okay? So, I mean, it's a piece of literature. It's been around a long, long time, and there's some valuable information in there for you if you're a believer or not. And the story of David and Goliath, I mean, for those of us that weren't in Sunday school, David is this tiny little pipsqueak shepherd boy. And Goliath is a Philistine giant warrior. He's over 9 feet tall.
Yeah.
And there were two armies, the Philistine army and the Israeli army were at the river. And back then, a lot of times the leaders would settle the battle by champions, which meant they would take their best soldier, the other side would take their best soldier, those two guys would fight, and whoever won. And then not everybody had to die, which is pretty – I wish we could do war like that now. I think the world would be a better place, but it's not how it works. So this thing in Ukraine would have been over way faster.
Yes.
But anyway, so David goes out there, and Goliath is calling everybody all these mean names and talking about their wives and their mothers and their daughters and calling them cowards and carrying on. And David comes out, and he talks to his brothers from the army and say, "Why aren't you fighting that guy?" And they're like looking at David going, "Are you crazy? Have you seen him?" And David goes, "Well, I'll fight him." And they're like, "Are you kidding me, you little pipsqueak? You're going to fight that guy? No way. You can't fight him." No, I'll fight him. And so David goes out and fights him, and the brothers figure, hey, we'll just tell Dad that we couldn't stop him. When he dies, we didn't like him anyway. So David goes out to fight Goliath. Now, what does this have to do with business and life? Well, here's the point. David is reframing this problem. Most of the brothers and all the other soldiers are looking at Goliath going, man, that guy's too big to hit. David looks at him and goes, that guy's too big to miss. And David's not looking, and again, I'm not trying to preach, but David's looking at Goliath and he's saying, listen, he's not comparing David's not comparing Goliath to himself. David's comparing Goliath to God. Okay?
Yeah.
And that makes Goliath look real small. Now, what does that mean in a secular sense? Well, in a secular sense, that means when you have an adversity, here's the point. When you have adversity, you don't look at the problem. You look at all the resources you can draw into the problem.
Yeah.
You look at all the consultants, all the lawyers, all the accountants, all your friends, all the staff, all your experience, all your staff's experience, all these resources you have to bear on the challenge.
Yeah.
And then you can overcome it. So that's the way I looked at it. And there are people that have had way bigger adversity than me. Some of you love Donald Trump. Some of you hate his guts.
Yes.
But the point is, Donald Trump was $900 million U.S. in debt.
Yeah.
Now imagine that. Walk into the office and the guy says, mate, can you loan me, some money for some cigarettes or something to eat? And you're worth and that guy's worth $900 million more than you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So, it's all scalable. It's not in the big scheme of things. It's not the end of the universe.
No, it's not the end of the universe. It's a start. It's a way forward. And that's what you do, Matt. So can you tell the listeners, if they are in business and they want to overcome problems that they have in their business, or they just need that to move to that next level, what is it that you do to do that for them?
Well, I sit down with them. I figure out where they're at. I figure out where they want to go. And I figure out a way to get them there. And then I sit down with them and I help them believe that they can succeed, that they can see that they can succeed, which is the most important thing.
Yeah, that's it. And Matt, if people do want to talk to you and they want to get in touch and they want to find out, you do a lot of key speaking notes around Adelaide and around the country. If people want to know more about that, can you help them to move to that speaking level, to be able to speak to suppliers, to be able to, let's say, negotiate better, to be able to just talk to their employers?
Their employers or their creditors?
Their creditors, sorry.
Well, I tell you what, that's one of the reasons why I didn't have, I was able to manage this $2.7 million in debt, like I said. And the reason why is, I didn't like doing this, but I did it anyway, is I always made sure I called them before they could call me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if something was going to go overdue or whatever, I called them first. You know, I talked to them and I said, this is the situation, but here's how I plan on solving it. I've got this sale. We're doing this country trip over here. We've got this promotion over here.
Yeah.
We expect to generate this much in revenue. The reason why I expect that much revenue is not my hopes. It's because last year we did this event and this was the result. You know, so I give them the reasons why. You know, what's going on in our business so they know exactly what was happening in our business and exactly the plan to get them paid. And most business people, if they've been in business any length of time, you know, have had struggles financially.
Yes.
And if you talk to them, tell them what's going on, show them a plan, show them you're not going to hide from them, show them you're not going to bury your head in the sand and just hope it gets better, they're usually okay. And, you know, I have people that, you know, when I owed them hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, I paid it off and they're great friends, you know, today.
So it comes down to communication is the key.
That's all it is. And that's the same thing in any relationship with anybody about anything. If you communicate with the person, more than likely you're going to get along with them. If you don't communicate, both parties are going to think the worst of the other one.
That's dead right. That's exactly right. The communication is the key. Now, Matt, also, you're able to put people in touch with the right people too. You do a lot of networking. I'm always seeing you on Facebook and I'm always seeing you around doing a lot of networking. Do you believe that people out there are not doing enough of this?
Well, you know, I mean, when I am the first 30, so I'm dating myself, but probably the first 30 years of my business career, or, you know, maybe a little bit less than that, I didn't really do any networking, to be honest. In fact, I used to call when my boss used to say, or not boss, past bosses would say, oh, I'm going networking. I'd say, oh, you're not working? You know, that was my joke. So, but I do think that there's a lot of value in getting to know other people. You know, there's a lot of value in building the people you know. You never know what can lead to what.
Yes.
And there's a lot of value in knowing that you're not alone. When you're a business owner, it's a lonely gig. Yeah. You know, you need you can't, you know, bring your staff in as confidants because that drags them down. You need to be the level above. So there's a lot of value in having people that are peers that can, you know, at least be a sounding board. And at best, you know, perhaps help your business grow financially.
And that's it. It's growing your business. And it takes a lot to grow your business. You've got to have a heart in it. And I think most importantly is that for someone, especially like yourself, it's going through those hard yards. You are a leader. You are an authoritative figure because you've been through it and you can help people avoid those pitfalls.
Well, they say most people learn from their mistakes. Smart people learn from other people's mistakes, you know, and so that's what I'd like to do. I don't hold myself out to be a genius, you know, but, you know, I do think that, you know, what I can offer people is shortcuts so they don't have to make the mistakes that I've made. You know, they don't have to learn the hard way. You know, it's better to do it the easy way, which is, you know, I mean, and when I say the easy way, I don't think it's easy, but, you know, the smart way.
Yeah. So if you are interested in finding out more about Matt, he can help you in many areas. Networking, he can help you with communication. But something I want to just touch on before we have to go, and that is you do comedy as well. Now, that is really putting yourself out there. How many people, they say that people would rather be in the casket at a funeral than actually give the eulogy. Tell us a little bit about why you went into comedy and how it's helped you in your business.
Well, I mean, first of all, you know, I would say I'd much rather be anywhere else than in the coffin. So, I mean, I've never understood that statistic. I've heard it, but, you know, I'd rather be anywhere else. But, you know, the reason I started public speaking, like I said, my background is in sales management. You know, I've had several thousand sales reps under me. I've had as many as 31 locations. I had the factory in China that exported to 26 countries as well as the 31 locations here in Australia. But the reason I did the comedy was, one, I've been told my whole life I should do it, you know. But the second reason was I figured that if as a 50-year-old white male if I can connect to the kind of people that are going to comedy clubs,
Yes.
that demographic,
Yes.
When in theory, I'm the reason the whole world is terrible because, I'm a white male over 50 with money, and I'm American. If I can connect to those people, then I should be able to connect to any audience about anything, and I should be a more effective trainer and communicator. So that's why I did it.
And it's fantastic because not only do you do, as I said, the comedy, the keynote speaking, the business, you also got a radio show that you do every week. Can you tell us a little bit about this radio show?
It's called Change the World with Matt McQuinley. And what we try to do is we try to focus on, well, we don't try to, we do. We focus on people that are trying to make a positive, effective change. For example, I had my friend Mark Mudry on there. He's a attorney, and he leads a group of 30,000 lawyers around the world called Advocates International. They go into countries that are switching from dictatorships to democracies. He helps them put in like a judicial system. He goes into countries with human rights abuses, tries to convince the governments why it's in their best interest to maybe treat their people a little bit better, without strong-arming them. He tries to find common ground. Last week I had on a guy who is a barber, but for autistic children.
Wow.
I had on a gal who has built some schools in Africa, and her children are in a lot of social enterprises. I've had on a gal named Felicity who was in the foster care system, who's now created a company that's trying to, revamp the foster care system. So those kind of people that are trying to make a difference to make the world a better place. And I do think that, there's there are a lot of good people out there. I mean, the news, as they used to say in the old days, if it bleeds, it leads. And the news is negative because there's a market for negative news. But the reality is we've moved ahead as a society. For the last 100,000 years, we're going to keep moving ahead. And there are people that want to make this world a better place. And I would like to do my tiny little bit to highlight them and to encourage them and inspire others.
I've listened to the show. It is very good. Matt, plug the show. When is it? And what?
It's on 87.6 FM in Adelaide, which is Radio Italia Uno.
Yep.
And it's from 6 to 7 p.m.
And also podcasted as well.
It's also there's a podcast recording on. You can get that on Spotify or any of the places you listen to podcasts, or on the Facebook page, which is Change the World with Matt McQuinley, McQuinley.
And Matt, if people do want to get in touch with you, whether they want you as a keynote speaker, whether they need you in their business to help them to move to the next level, or if they've got something that is stopping them from moving, how can they get in contact with you?
Well, they could give me an email if they like at Matt, M-A-T-T, at green, like the color, knight, like knight in shining armor, coaching.com.au, or they could give me an SMS if they like on 0401 475 790. And I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and those things as well.
So definitely have a look for that. We will get Matt eventually onto the Adelaide Project for a full interview where Matt will go from the moment that he had his business ideas right through to today, and also talk about maybe a little bit about his military history that he's done, his education, because he's done a lot, and we will hopefully we'll get you on to talk about that, Matt. Matt, thank you so much for coming on to the Adelaide Project Business Spotlight, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you soon.
All righty. Thank you very much, Ron.